It's been a while, but join me, Marcus, as I take a walk along the beach. I'm actually walking along Margam Sands, which is a long stretch of beach which is behind the steelworks, and I'm walking all the way up to the cranes of Port Talbot docks. And if I time it right, I should get a look at an old wreck on the beach up by Margam Sands. And that's the wreck of the Amazon, which ran aground in 1908. Well, this walk is about 10 miles, that's 16 kilometres, and should take you about 3.5 hours. That's 5 miles out and 5 miles back. The main thing is to time it right. If you want to see the wreck, you should aim for low tide and leave here, I'm at Maudlam, about 2 hours before low tide itself. As mentioned, I'm starting here next to Maudlam Church and the Angel Inn pub, and I'm walking across Kenfig Dunes to the beach. There's a number of ways you can walk along the beach, but I'm going to take the Kenfig Castle path. Again, as usual, I'll put my starting point and links to a map in the description below. Anyway, that's the info out the way. Let's get started by crossing Kenfig Dunes. It's the first dry day for a while, but the wind is quite strong. Not so much here on Kenfig Dunes, it's sheltered, but when you get to the beach, so there may be a bit of wind noise. Anyway, if you just look up Kenfig Dunes, you can see the sea. You just head there. So there's a number of paths, but I'm going to take the one I like, which is alongside Kenfig Castle. So this route takes you alongside the M4 motorway until you get to the main line. I've done this before on a number of walks, but you do get to see the top of old buried Kenfig Castle. So I'm alongside the M4, go to this gate, and we take a walk down here. We turn in away from the road. You should pick up these concrete blocks. Just follow this. Like I said, there's a number of paths you can take. From the top of a dune, you can see the sea. So just head towards the sea. So on top of there, it's that little, you probably can't see it on the camera, a little stone column. That's the only part of Kenfig Castle that remains. Everything else is buried. And shameless plug, I've done a longer video about the history of this area, and I'll link that below. So I got to this point, you can see the horses field behind me, and there's a fork in the path. In the map I did, when I mapped it out, I went that way towards the Kenfig River and down to the beach. But I'm not going that route today. The simple reason, when I mapped it out, it was dry. It'd been dry for a month. Down there, because it's near the river, it floods. It's like marshland, and I think we've had like weeks of rain, so I think it's going to be flooded down there. So I'm going this route. You can see the tracks there, it's motorbikes, which shouldn't be here, by the way. but I think that's left over from the weekend. Anyway, so I'm not sticking to my map exactly because I think it's going to be too wet down that route. Like I said, it doesn't matter which route you take on this part. You get to the top of a dune and you can see the sea. Just head for that. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but you may be able to make out the reeds, and this is where it gets marshy. So that's why I took a different route today. Well, just before I get to the beach, I've come across some cows grazing. I'm going to disturb them now because they're right on the path. Right, girls? So I've walked over the dunes. You get to the Wales coast path, and at any point you can then cut through to the beach itself. I forgot to mention, you do have to cross the Kenfig River. The Kenfig River isn't that big, and when the tide's out, you can just paddle across. Not really deep at all. But if you don't fancy that, or in the unlikely event it is deeper than normal because of heavy rain, there is a bridge which is part of the Wales coast path just behind the first set of dunes between the beach and the land. There's a little wooden footbridge, but I'm heading to the beach. Hopefully it's not going to be too windy because I will be walking into the wind along the beach. So you come out on the beach and then it's simple from here. You just head towards Port Talbot Steelworks. When you come out, you may notice a wreck there, a small wreck. That's the wreck of the MV Altmark, which ran aground. No one was lost in that ship. Well, it's a boat, actually. Anyway, this way towards those big cranes and the steelworks. One fact about this beach, we're on Kenfig Sands now. We get to the river, then we go into Margam Sands. The steelworks did try to stop access for the public onto Margam Sands a few years ago, but luckily they didn't get away with it. The beach is still open to the public. So I'm going to take my shoes and socks off and walk across. If we didn't want to do that, about 300 yards upriver is that wooden footbridge I mentioned earlier. it's cold. Actually, it's quite deep today, so I'm walking down a bit. So, safely across. Let's go and put my shoes and socks back on. So what I think I'll do is leave my shoes and socks off because it's a beach. I can paddle on the way up, and it's on the way back I'll have to take them off again. So barefoot. Let's go. It's still a bit overcast, but there is a bit of sun. I must admit, the smoke coming off the steelworks doesn't look very pleasant. Well, luckily it's blowing that way. It does look a low tide today, so hopefully we will be able to see the wreck of the Amazon from 1908. So, as well as the Amazon, Margam Sands was used for training during World War II. And up here near the wreck, you can find remnants of a Mulberry Harbour. That's what they used for landing, for bringing ships in during D-Day. And also, there's meant to be an old tank buried here as well. I've never seen it myself. I think it's only visible at very low tide and the top's off. But you can still see the Mulberry Harbour. So we'll take a look at that. Look at that view. Like I said, something for the heavy industry fans. It's amazing. We walked over Kenfig Dunes, which is a site of special scientific interest, and it's got rare plants and things like that. And about a mile away is that. Like I said, if you're into your heavy industry, this is the walk for you. Look at the flames over there, look at that. So we're getting quite close to our destination. Hopefully the tide is low enough. So these are just naturally occurring outcrops. They're like a peaty stuff. It's about an hour before low tide, and I'm getting to the wreck, and I think I can see it. So, an hour either side should be okay of low tide. And yes, the sun's coming out. I'm just coming up to what I think is the remains of the Mulberry Harbour. So we're just coming up to the wreck of the Amazon. It's been lying here for 115 years. Well, sorry for the lack of videos over the last few months. I've had a few things on. Hopefully, over the remainder of the summer and into autumn, I can get a few more out. Anyway, that was my walk along Margam Sands to the wreck of the Amazon. And if you want to find out more about the Amazon, check out the video I mentioned earlier, and it's coming up next. And I'll see you in that. Bye.